Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of TA with MK. My name is MK, and I haven't put out a video in a little over a week, maybe even closer to like 10 days. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been, but for those of you that have been following my channel for a while, or even more recently, you would know that I've just had a baby boy. He just turned 6 weeks old today, actually, so he's still pretty young. But for those of you that have kids, I'm sure you understand they keep us very, very busy, mine being no different. That being said, we're very grateful to have the little guy. We're so happy he's here. He's healthy. We love the heck out of him. But, I'm going to try to get back in the normal swing of things now that we've had him for a little while. We're kind of getting more settled in. So I thought today I would go ahead and do a video, kind of a follow-up video more or less, about some of the higher time frame ideas that I've been talking about on the channel, really for about a month. Things like the altcoin season that I talked about potentially being around the corner, kind of give you guys an update on the Bitcoin dominance chart, which is kind of what I've been watching in confluence with the Bitcoin price to kind of determine if and when this potential alt season could happen. If that all sounds interesting to you guys, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. So the first place that we're going to start in today's video is actually going to be the Bitcoin daily chart. Just want to kind of give you guys an update of kind of what has transpired up to this point. Kind of why I believe that the area, why I have a certain area that I believe needs to hold essentially for this rally to continue, and where I believe we'll head if and when ultimately we are able to break the 30K level. Now, I wanted to mention that I posted this in my Telegram group a couple days ago. I had been pretty inactive for the 3 or 4 days, maybe even a whole week. Like I said, I've been busy with my son. But I had a message from one of the active members in my group. He just said, "Okay, we just got weekend consolidation, or are we getting ready for a move up? Your thoughts, if you may, please." I said, if it doesn't happen over the weekend, because this message I believe was on Thursday or Friday, I said, if it doesn't happen over the weekend, then yes, a move up makes sense. I'm still expecting 32K, maybe higher, before a deeper retrace. We're going to talk about that obviously in today's video. But most major time frames were very oversold going into the weekend, so a pullback made sense. And of course, I put, that being said, this is also the big one. I said, that being said, a move up Sunday night would make sense if we haven't seen the pullback I've been expecting. Well, in the short term, as of Thursday going into Friday, the weekend, the probabilities to me still suggested that we would see maybe potentially a bit of a pullback. I even opened a short, which you would have saw in that screenshot of the Telegram. Opened around 20, I think it was just under 28,000, and I was expecting price to drop by a few percent back down to 27,300. Well, by Sunday afternoon, when price had continued, in fact, if we go to like a 4-hour time frame, or we'll even do like a 3-hour time frame, you can see that price action over the weekend really did just go sideways, right? Well, in my opinion, the longer the price went sideways, the more likely that the indicators are going to reset and we were going to see a move up, which is the entire reason that I mentioned in the group, the big but if we don't see it happen in the short term, that we're likely to see the move begin sometime, Sunday night. Well, clearly you can see by the screenshot that I'm putting on the screen right now that I did not catch, the entire move that has transpired over the past 24 hours, but I closed my short, I think it was actually at break even yesterday, which for me was Sunday, of course, in the early afternoon after we'd had lunch, Easter lunch with my wife. And, at that point, I was planning on longing, or I've been planning on longing now at this point, ultimately up to 30K. I also mentioned in my group earlier today that I've closed 75% of this position, and I'm waiting for the ultimate break of 30K. I don't expect it to happen the first go around. Most of the time you meet major resistance, you're going to see it have to, consolidate a bit. Usually it even gets rejected once or twice. The amount of that rejection varies, of course, depending on market conditions, but ultimately we would expect some sideways consolidation at the very least, basically at the level we're at now, which is right around, right now we're at 29,613 at the time of making this video, but the top of this wick on this 3-hour candle looks like it reached right around 29,800. And if we zoom back out to kind of the daily, you can see that this is obviously a level of resistance, especially if you look back over here to where there's some candles here that were support. Back here, it's the first place you saw a little bounce after this giant dumpola candle. However, that being said, the reason I'm more optimistic that we're likely just to see some short-term consolidation before a move upward is I believe at this point we've broken through the bigger area of resistance. You can see that clear back in here, this blue horizontal line on my screen, which really is right around 28,700, 28,750. clearly it, on a candle closing basis, at least on the dailies, it was support all in here between May of last year, cleared through June of last year, when ultimately we saw this giant capitulation candle, right? So this was an area that had been acting as support, you know, obviously last year. It's also the area that after Bitcoin found its first all-time high, which would have been up here, obviously, back in April of 2021, you know, and then we saw this deep retrace. It's the area that we kept seeing price action bounce at, you know, just above anyway. So ultimately, you know, and even back here, actually, in January of 2021, when we very first broke above it, it was the first area that we saw a major bounce before continuing on to what was an all-time high at that point. So I guess I'm just saying all that to kind of preface that clearly the area that was the most, or is the most important, at least near where we're at now, is right around 28 to 29,000, 28,800, I mean, to 29,000. And as of right now, or at least as of today's daily candle, which is closing in 5 minutes, we are above that level. So I said a whole lot to say very little, which is kind of, I guess, should be the motto of this channel. I say a lot to say very little. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys some quick targets and kind of how I'm coming up with these targets, both kind of more shorter term, and then of course maybe mid/longer term targets, talking like the next, you know, 2 to 6 months targets, as well as stuff that could happen over the next few days to few weeks. And we're going to start out with the larger target, then kind of work our way backwards. But what I'm going to use is this fib retracement tool. We're also going to turn on the line tool, that way we don't have to see the wicks. When you're using the line on TradingView, it's just showing you exactly where that bar closed. In this case, we're on the daily, so we can see, for example, up here in November of 2021, we know Bitcoin actually went to like 68, almost 69K, but it closed at 67,500, right? So we're going to go from that point and then drag down to the low, which we believe is we believe this is going to be the actual macro low at around 15,700, at least on a closing basis. We'll drag this over here so you can kind of see the levels. And essentially what this tool is doing is it's giving us what's called fib extension levels. And I'm going to explain the ones that I think are important, or where the rally could potentially go. But you can see the very, very first fib that I have here is what's called the 236. And if we zoom in, you can see that it fell just under 28,000, at least if you drag from where I did, at about 27,950. Kind of shows that level I was referring to, that at about 28,000, just being a super important level. And if we break that and hold it, which as of right now, we're just on day one of breaking that essentially and holding it. But if we break and hold on a daily candle closing basis, 28,000, the next realistic fib level target is up at around 35,500. Does that mean it's going to happen today or tomorrow? Most definitely, and most likely not. And it may not happen at all, at least not in the, you know, midterm, for example. I definitely believe Bitcoin will eventually, you know, make new all-time highs and things. So of course, eventually it will reach that. But does it mean during this bear market rally, is it going to reach that? Not necessarily, but that would be a key level. If we can start to close candles, daily candles in this case, over 28,000, you know, it's natural that that would be the next fib level that we would rally to. And it also has confluence. You can see that this is kind of where we had a major bounce in January of 2022 before we rallied back up, you know, to this level. And this level being the golden pocket, which is going to be a huge level eventually. I'm thinking more like 2024-ish before we ever even see a level like this, at least most likely. But that's going to be back up here to around 48K, but that's not something that's important, at least in my opinion right now. But over the next few months, if this rally is to continue, the next logical fib target for me would be up around 35,000, like I said, 500. That being said, what are some more realistic targets in the, you know, shorter term, so to speak, you know, maybe over the next few months or few weeks to few months? And to find those, I'm actually just going to delete this. We're going to still stay on the line chart, but we're going to zoom in, and let me just explain real quick why I'm going to pull the fib, you know, tool from where I'm pulling it. If you kind of look at this all as just swings, you kind of have a swing high, a swing low, a swing high, a swing low, swing high, right, swing low, and now we're beginning a swing high, low, and we're in the middle of, you know, the potential, you know, next swing high. So what we're going to do to get the more short-term targets, as I've zoomed in a little bit, is we're going to take the fib retracement tool, and we're just going to take this last swing high, which happened in February when Bitcoin closed right at around 24,000, just under 25,000. And we're going to drag that down to this low, which was right around 20,000, drag it off to the side, and we can see some more short-term, you know, fib extension targets now. You can see right now that the 2 measured move for that, which basically just means it's double the area that I pulled from this high to this low. Double that was actually this area at about 29,500. That's currently what we're working our way above. And the next logical fib target would be the 2.272, which is about 30,800. I'd expect if we break 30K, as I mentioned earlier in the video, for a quick move up to about 30,800 to 31,000 before some consolidation or maybe a short-term pullback. And if we break that, then of course, I think we would be up to the next target, which would be the 2.618, which is right about just under 32,500. And 32,500 coincidentally has been an area that I've been targeting or mentioning in a lot of my videos over the past month and a half, as it related to kind of where I expected this rally to potentially reach before the impending or potential altcoin season arrives. So that's what we're going to transition to now in the video. But I just want to point out that if Bitcoin does break 30K, these are kind of my short-term targets. When I say short-term, I mean the next few weeks to a month and a half. That to me would still be considered kind of short-term in the grand scheme of things. And if and when we eventually reach that target of about 32,500, doesn't mean we can't go higher as far as Bitcoin is concerned. But as we transition to the next chart, I'll explain that at that point, I would kind of expect some of the money movement inside of this market to begin to transition over to the altcoins. And then that brings us over to one of my very favorite charts. I mention it all the time on this channel, or at least quite frequently, and that is the Bitcoin dominance chart. Now, I always mention whenever I talk about this chart in my videos that if you're new to this chart or you don't fully understand exactly what it's showing or how you can use it, I'll leave a link in the description to 2 different videos that I've made, kind of a part 1 or part 2 type thing, where I dive deep into the full explanation of Bitcoin dominance, how it works, kind of the nuances. In a nutshell, just for the purpose of this video, the easiest way to explain it is, generally speaking, if this chart is going up, that is bad for altcoins, and generally speaking, when it's going down, that's good. Now, it's not quite that simple, and that's why if you are new to this, I would recommend checking those links and watching those videos in the description beforehand, and then come back and watch the rest of this analysis. All that being said, we mentioned kind of at length in one of my recent videos that Bitcoin dominance was reaching the top essentially of this zone of major resistance that really does date back all the way to 2021, right before kind of the major altcoin seasons began, and Bitcoin obviously went on to make a new all-time high, and that would be this big move down to the bottom side of this giant range we've been playing in, and then we eventually saw a move back up to the top, and the easiest way to look at this, or to I guess put a term to this, is these moves down are what we refer to in crypto as altcoin seasons, and these moves up are what we call Bitcoin seasons. Now, it is important to understand that not every one of these moves down was some giant altcoin season where altcoins put in new all-time highs or anything like that. And the reverse of that, every time this went up this direction, didn't mean Bitcoin was putting in new all-time highs, which is very obvious based on the fact that it found the bottom of this major area of resistance back in November of 2022, and this move up, which we would call Bitcoin season, it's not like this has all been sunflowers and daisies for the price of Bitcoin between November of 2022 to now. But what we can derive from this, or what we should pull from this as being relevant, is that during this entire move up, it just means that Bitcoin as a whole has outperformed the altcoins. Doesn't mean it's outperformed every altcoin, obviously. That's a lot of altcoins, and plenty have seen some crazy moves while Bitcoin's done nothing. But overall, it just means that during this time frame, or during this quote-unquote Bitcoin season, that the attention has been more on Bitcoin than it has than the altcoins. Or I guess another way to look at it, in simpler terms, is anytime this was moving down, it would have been better from an investment standpoint to have your money in some, major altcoin, some big cap altcoin. And anytime this has been trending to the upside, you would have been, generally speaking at least, safer or better off to have your money in Bitcoin. Okay, so with that being said, where would we expect this to go next? Well, based on, the history of the past 3 years or 2.5 years, you would expect probably resistance, right? It's been resistance on 1, 2, 3, 4 major occasions dating back to then at least. And actually even wicked up here, so you could really say 5 occasions dating back to May of 2021. So I guess, statistically speaking, we would expect to see some sort of a rejection here. That being said, what I've been kind of alluding to in my most recent videos is the idea that we potentially see, especially as we're kind of ending in my opinion, the bear market, the end of the bear market. Doesn't mean price action won't go down one more time, revisit close to the lows and all of that. But I think that we're further along in the bear market, more than halfway done. Let's just put it that way. Maybe are we somewhere between 60, 65, 70% done? One could argue that, but I believe at least that we're over halfway done. And I do believe at this point, as we transition into the end of this bear market and the beginning of the next bull market, we're going to possibly see history do something that it's done in the past. And by the past, I mean we got to go clear back here to July, basically, of 2018, where Bitcoin dominance. Now, of course, it didn't range nearly as long as it did this go around, but clearly this area that we're at now had been support, right? Before we had a huge Bitcoin season, and then we saw, a giant epic altcoin season that saw, Bitcoin dominance drop all the way back to like 36% before rallying back up here, found resistance on these 200 SMA and EMA up around 50% before rejection, bottom of my blue zone, which clearly has been important ever since. And then the next time it rallied up to that, which was in July of 2018, it broke above it, and Bitcoin dominance went on a giant rally. Now, I've also mentioned in some of my recent videos that I do not expect Bitcoin dominance to go as high as it did, between 2019 and ultimately 2021. I just think that altcoins becoming more and more important as the days and years go by, that the days of Bitcoin dominance being above 60% are very, very unlikely, at least in my opinion. But could Bitcoin dominance break out, at least in the short to mid-term, and go on a rally? Yes, in fact, it's very, very likely in my opinion. And if it were to break out, where would be the logical target? Well, we can find some confluence actually with that. First, we'll use this little fib tool. We'll pull from this high, clear down to kind of this zone of the low, right? You could put that about anywhere, but we'll just go with the low. And you have fib targets up here at about the 382, which is 52%. Lo and behold, if we draw a horizontal line right there at that 382 fib target, you can see that dating back to September of 2018 through like April of 2019, this was kind of the area or zone that was being support before Bitcoin dominance went on another rally. So it's obviously, or it should be considered, an obvious area of interest. Now, do I personally think we go all the way up to that? Yes and no. I don't think that in the short term we necessarily are going to suddenly rally up to 52%. If we did, it would be likely, coincided or in confluence with Bitcoin breaking above 35, 38K, maybe even a run all the way to like 40K, something that I just think is unlikely, at least over the next few weeks to a few months. Over time, of course, that's eventually, inevitably, in my opinion, going to happen. But what would make some sense if we break above this is for maybe a quick rally up here to where you can see these undersides of these wicks, which is right around 49, just under 50%, 49.5 to percent. You can see it was resistance here, support here. It's a zone basically between about 50% down to like 49.5%. And in my opinion, it would just make sense that if Bitcoin is to break 30K, like we mentioned as a possibility earlier in the video, 32.5 being a logical target, maybe on up to 35, 36K. Well, if that's going to happen, clearly, if Bitcoin breaks 30K at all, with any sort of volume or momentum, the market's attention is naturally going to be on Bitcoin, which is kind of what this chart represents. At its core is just where the attention is, right? Is it on Bitcoin or is it on altcoins? Well, I think if Bitcoin breaks 30K, you can naturally assume attention is going to be on it. So we break this resistance on the Bitcoin dominance chart, rally up somewhere to these levels, back here, maybe between 49 and 50%. And at that point, probably see a bit of a major rejection, some sort of a move back down to where we are now or lower. And that's what we're waiting for, in my opinion, to be kind of the trigger of a little more epic altcoin season. I mean, altcoins are obviously moving up anytime Bitcoin's moving up. If you've been holding on to an altcoin, or bought an altcoin, say a month and a half, 2 months ago, you're probably in profits unless it was a terrible altcoin that you chose, but the majority of the altcoin market is up because Bitcoin's been up. However, When we see this get rejected, this Bitcoin dominance, and Bitcoin's above a major level, consolidating. If we go back to the Bitcoin chart and make, let's just kind of jump ahead and make some assumptions. Bitcoin breaks 30K. It's up here above 30,000 or 31,000, consolidating something like this. Maybe makes its last move up to 32.5, maybe even higher. But at any rate, it's consolidating and showing strength. At some point, this is going to top out and start trending this direction, and then we're going to see a lot bigger movements out of our altcoins. And at that point, I'm going to really be focusing on putting out videos that are altcoin specific analysis, finish out our top 10 videos for those of you that are kind of following that series, because at that point, that's going to be when I would deploy much more capital into the altcoins and hopefully ride what I believe would be a few weeks, maybe to a few months worth of really, really good altcoin movement. And the last thing I want to briefly touch on before we finish up today's video is I've started a little series that I kind of dubbed my top 10 coins that I want to accumulate or purchase during the bear market. These are just coins that I've traded in the past, in most cases, coins that I think are solid fundamentally. And I've done 3 videos so far. I'll leave links in the description if you want to watch those videos where I've just kind of dived into the coins. Now, I did give a sneak peek to my 4th coin in a video here about a week and a half ago. It was UFO, which is a gaming coin. And I just wanted to mention or do a follow-up that this is going to be a video I should be able to get out tomorrow or the next day. I started working on it today, actually. And I just wanted to mention for those of you that have maybe been waiting on that video that I'm working on it now, but it is my 4th coin. I'd recommend if you're behind on this series to go ahead and watch the other 3 videos that I've put links to in the description. Catch yourself up to this coin. I'll be getting that video out in the next day or 2. And also just wanted to mention, now that things have settled down a bit for myself, that I'll be trying to get these videos out at least once a week, hopefully a little bit more often than that even. I want to get this whole series rounded up and finished sometime by early summer, essentially, something like June 1st at the latest. So that way, hopefully there's time, during whatever I believe would be the next kind of major pullback for those of you that are interested in these coins that I mentioned, or at least some of them, to be able to watch my videos and potentially accumulate some of them for the next impending bull run. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate each and every one of you. And on your way out, if you haven't already, please do me a huge favor and remember to like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.
It's TIMECODES.